They say comedy doesn't age well, but these 5 movies prove this idea to be completely false. I went back in time this month and I watched over 30 comedies from the 80s. One of these movies got banned, but is still funny today. Another I not only consider to be one of the greatest all-around comedies of all time, but one of the greatest all-around movies ever made. Let's start things off. Coming in at number 5, we've got Police Academy, which follows the story of a city in which the mayor loosens restrictions to become a police officer because the town is so crime-ridden. As a result, we get a group of misfit goofballs who enroll in the police academy and all of the hilarity that ensues between them and their hard-assed instructors. This movie is just the epitome of a classic comedy movie. When you think of classic 80s straight comedy movies, this is exactly the kind of movie that comes to mind. We used to get these kinds of movies all the time. We never get them anymore, and they are sorely missed. This movie reminded me a lot of Stripes, which I also watched this month. I personally much preferred Police Academy because I think the characters are a lot funnier, a lot more unique. I think the overall protagonist is just so much better. The supporting characters are a lot funnier. The one that really sticks out is the guy making all the sound effects.
What are you in for?
I'll show you.
God damn it, stop that!
I didn't realize that, but those are not computer generated or Foleyed in. Like this guy, he actually makes those sound effects in real life. He's able to. It's pretty cool stuff. But I thought the plot was a lot cleaner and more interesting, and the set pieces I thought were a lot funnier as well too. The two big ones are, of course, the Blue Oyster Bar scene, and the head of the police department is giving the speech and he gets the surprise blowjob under the curtain. That's actually one of the funnier set pieces I've seen in a comedy movie, regardless of decade. Transitioning into number 4, we've got the ultimate school skipping comedy of all time with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I remember watching this movie for the first time. I actually rented it from Blockbuster on a Friday when I was in elementary school. I was probably about 10 years old. This was probably about the 5th or 6th time I've watched this movie, but the first time in about 10 to 15 years, and it still definitely holds up. We, of course, follow Ferris Bueller, who takes a sick day, and he brings his best friend and girlfriend along the ride for the ultimate cinematic school skipping experience, and just what an adventurous journey they go on. I wasn't a huge school skipper myself. I did it a few times in elementary school, but the only big things I did were stay at home and play video games because I just didn't feel like going to school. The only real one I did when I had a car, I was actually ironically a pretty solid student, but one day, senior year of high school, I remember overhearing one of the vice principals talk about how the K-9 unit was coming to school, and I had left something in my car that rhymes with seed. I met up with one of my friends and I was like, yo, the K-9 units are coming, and we hauled ass down the hallway and, we drove out of there and we took care of that certain thing. You could say we burned it, came back to school. That made for a very interesting final few hours of school that day, but that's really the most interesting school skipping story I have. I would love to hear of any school skipping stories you have. I love going back in time and hearing about people's experiences like this, so please let me know in the comments down below any exciting adventures you had in your school days. But moving into number 3, we have the banned movie on this list with Revenge of the Nerds. You can't find this movie on any streaming service. If you go to Netflix, iTunes, Amazon, Tubi, you name it, this movie is not available. Literally the only possible way to watch this movie is to go buy a hard copy of the DVD. The movie follows a group of nerds who move into college and their place of living gets burnt down by the jocks, and they are horribly mistreated by the surrounding fraternities and sororities, and they decide to make their own fraternity and get their revenge. It is the Revenge of the Nerds, hence the title. This movie, of course, it's very funny. It's very satirical as well, which leans into what I want to talk about with, this movie is a banned movie because it has a couple of really problematic scenes. Yes, the scenes in question, those would be very much wrong things to do. Those are serious crimes, felonies even. The thing, though, is that this movie, like I said, is satirical. It is so far up the spectrum of satire and parody that I would seriously put this up there with the parody movies we got of the 2000s, like the Wayans Brothers Scary Movie series, or Epic Movie, Date Movie, Superhero Movie. Some of those were better than others, but this movie is a parody movie in and of itself. I can't believe anyone takes it seriously whatsoever, but I mean, we've got some sensitive people out there who just like to cry about things, but anyone with any ounce of morality would 100% say that those things would be horrible, heinous things to do in real life, but anyone with any sense of common sense would say this is clearly a completely far out of left field, cartoony, satirical movie, and no, you should not take any of this seriously. But speaking of movies that won't age well, I've got exactly one of those cooking up. It's titled Pleasure List, and it follows the story of a 20s man on the autism spectrum who hires a degenerate aspiring actor to help him out with a bucket list of normal life experiences. And I can already tell you there is a ton of dialogue and set pieces and you name it that people will already say in 2025, this kind of humor is already 40 years too old, let alone 40 years from now. Holy shit, what will they say about this movie? But you know, it's going to be a ton of fun. I am committed to making this by far the best all-around picture that I have written, directed, and produced, the funniest as well. But I can only make this movie with your support. At the time of recording this video, we are right around $17,000, almost to the 60% mark. You know, I record these videos a week or two in advance. So by the time you watch this video, if I'm correct, there will be 8 days left in the campaign. Don't quote me on that, though. But with that being said, we can only make this movie if we reach our $30,000 goal. And thanks to support from YouTube, among other avenues, you know, we haven't had that mid-campaign slump that virtually every other crowdfunding campaign has. But, you know, we cannot prematurely celebrate. We need $30,000 or everyone gets refunded and there's no movie. So we really need your support more now than ever to push us through the finish line. This isn't just like a GoFundMe where you just donate money. You know, on Indiegogo, there are perks and you will be rewarded for supporting this campaign. You know, of course, you'll get a free copy of the movie. You will also get access to our behind the scenes documentary and watch us film the movie simultaneously. You'll get a special thanks credit. You'll be able to join our Discord and Facebook exclusive groups where we'll be taking you through every step of the process from pre-production, through production, through post-production, through the premiere, through our festival run. And you will also be able to interact with the cast and crew 24/7. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be a super community-driven film. And, you know, we would love to take you along for the ride. So I'm going to be including a link to the crowdfunding campaign in the description and in the pinned comment down below. But getting into movie number 2 on this list, we've got Back to School starring Rodney Dangerfield, which is about a middle-aged man who never went to college and decides to join his son at college for the semester. All of the ridiculousness that ensues when this affluent man tries to maneuver the world of college. You know, I would say this is the single funniest movie on this list. I wouldn't say it's the greatest all-around movie, hence it being ranked number 2 and not number 1. But Rodney Dangerfield really makes this movie. You know, I would compare this a lot to Wedding Crashers with Vince Vaughn, in that how Vince Vaughn really made that movie through his portrayal of Jeremy Gray and all of his improv. And the movie wouldn't have been what it was with any other actor, no matter how strong they were. That exact dynamic exists here with Rodney Dangerfield. You know, he turns this movie into one of his stand-up routines, but it works so well. And everyone plays off of him so well. You know, he really makes for one of the funniest comedy movies I've ever seen. If I ever make a top 10 funniest comedy movies of all time, I think I would be hard-pressed not to include this one in the list. So really go check this one out. But moving into number one, very strong words I shared about this movie in the intro, and that I don't just consider this to be one of the greatest comedy movies. This is just straight up one of the greatest films ever made. And we've got Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I think you can even see it's one of the posters behind me. This movie is just, oh my God, it is just perfect cinema. We follow the trials and tribulations of several different high school students from the first day of school to the last day of school at Ridgemont High. And, this movie is so real. And that is because Cameron Crowe, the writer of the movie, wrote this based on his experience going undercover at a high school when he was well past the age of high school graduation. And I have no idea how that's legal. Definitely would not go over well today, but I'm so thankful that he did, because this movie literally feels like a fly on the wall movie, like they filmed thousands of hours of the high school year and just cut it all together into one movie. And it has just such great representation on screen. It follows so many different main characters to the point where everybody who watches this movie sees themselves as one of the characters. It's just such an amazing, timeless, universal comedy. But I bet Fast Times at Ridgemont High and all the other comedies on this list are right up your alley. So you're going to want to check out my top 5 college comedy movies of all time, which I break down here.